It's that time, guys, after the Australian Grand Prix. Let's go through and rate each and every one of the drivers and see how they got on. And we're going to start right at the front. Carlos Sainz, the new name, #1. It was a fantastic job. The man without a job, without an appendix, from hospital bed to P1. I mean, it's absolutely incredible, this story. I mean, I hope Netflix got to watch the whole 2 weeks of him to do what he did. I mean, he was brilliant in qualifying. In his first stint in the race was mega, wasn't it? It's what sort of broke everybody, didn't it? He was at one point 1 second a lap faster than Leclerc. He was absolutely brilliant. He controlled the race, and to do it in the condition that he did, he was hobbling around. He could barely walk. He came with the car just saying he was stiff as a rock, wasn't he? About a 10 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. I mean, this could not put him any more further on the map than it already has, hasn't it? He's now got 3 wins in that Ferrari, just like his teammate Charles Leclerc. Yeah, everything is just absolutely, you just can't fault the guy. The fact is that he's out of a seat next season, and you really hope that he gets the job right at the front and not somewhere mid-pack, because that'll be an absolute travesty, wouldn't it? He really fully deserved that one. And following up right behind him is his teammate Charles Leclerc. He had a poor qualifying session in my view. I thought he'd be the one to stick it on pole. He had a horrible last lap, didn't he, where he had to abort it. But in the race, he got a good start to the race. It was very good strategy from the team for once. It was a nice change from Ferrari, wasn't it? Strategy's normally been their weak point, but he got that. They got that absolutely bang on. Got the undercut on Lando Norris, and a brilliant P2 from him. Brought it home. A 1-2 for Ferrari. I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc, because I think he did the best he could. He was, qualified in 5th place. He got up 1 place because of Perez's penalties, and it started 4th in the end, but a very good result from him. And in 3rd place, Lando Norris. I think he had a brilliant weekend. Very good. A really good qualifying session from him also. In the race, he was fast as well, didn't he? At one point, he had the fastest lap of the race, but he just couldn't quite get close enough to Charles Leclerc. And that was probably, he was actually himself disappointed for not getting P2, wasn't he? He felt that strategy probably let McLaren down there. They got undercut, and that sort of meant Charles Leclerc passed him, because there was points in the race, especially in that second stint, where Lando Norris was actually faster than Charles Leclerc, and had the positions been reversed, I'm not sure Leclerc would have had enough to pass Lando Norris. But overall for Norris, I think it was a brilliant weekend from him. An 8 out of 10. And right up behind him, his teammate Oscar Piastri, a 4th place finish. He had a very good race. Got ahead of Lando Norris within the pit stops, and it looked like at that stage, had McLaren made a bit of a mistake with strategy here. It turns out they probably did with Lando Norris, didn't they? But Piastri did a really good job. He was about 10 seconds behind Norris in the end at the race, but I think he did a lot of that was probably because he made that mistake, didn't he, just towards the end where he took that trip across the grass. But other than that, it was a very good P4, a solid result from Oscar Piastri. 2 McLarens right up there, 3rd and 4th, a brilliant weekend for them. 7 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri from me for this weekend. Sergio Perez up in 5th place. Now, he qualified 3rd, got that 3 place grid penalty, didn't he, which was a shame really. But after that in the race, he got past Russell, and then he also passed Alonso. But as passing Alonso, apparently got some damage there, didn't he? And then he struggled because Alonso managed to keep within his DRS zone from there onwards. Overall, I think it's disappointing for Sergio Perez. He finished 56 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. I mean, that is massive, especially given how good we've seen that car in the hands of Max Verstappen. Going to give him some benefit of the doubt because of this car damage, apparently, which, really cost him, because really he should be, in weekends like this, mopping up. Max Verstappen, his teammate, isn't there for the win. He should be taking the win. And the fact that he finished 5th, beaten by 2 McLarens and 2 Ferraris, I think is actually disappointing. I've gone for a 5 out of 10. That may be harsh given the extent of the damage. We don't really know. But that's what it is. Next up behind him is Lance Stroll. Now, he benefited, moved up a place because of the Alonso penalty, which I'll get to in a minute, but he had a good qualifying. He actually beat Fernando Alonso in quali, didn't he? Started in P9 and a good result in the end. He's moved up, he was closer to Fernando Alonso this weekend. A P6 finish, so good points for the Aston Martin team and a decent ride. for Lance Stroll. This is kind of what he needs, doesn't he? Be in and around his teammate, a lot closer than what we've seen so far this season. I'm going for a 7 out of 10 for him for this weekend. And then Yuki Tsunoda, a fantastic P7 finish. It was a great weekend, really good qualifying session. He beats his teammate, a really good race result, sets him up perfectly to go into his home race in Japan next time out. He's put Ricciardo in the shade, hasn't he, a little bit, Yuki Tsunoda. He's gone under the radar, he's not really touted as this fantastic driver, but he's pulled off some really good results. This is brilliant points for the team. I'm going for a 9 out of 10 for Yuki. Fernando Alonso, now this is the big one, isn't it? Not a great qualifying session from him. He started in P10, beaten by his teammate. His strategy though was spot on, wasn't it? He started on the hards, he ran long, the VSC helped him out, he pitted under that, came out 5th, got past Russell because of that, and then stuck with Sergio Perez when he passed him, wasn't it? Right in the DRS zone. And the big talking point here is the 20-second penalty. It was effectively a drive-through penalty he got for the incident with George Russell. Now, this is strange because you call it an incident. They didn't touch. When you look back at the views as well, yes, he's not done what you would normally do. He sort of slowed down, downshifted, braked slightly 100 meters before a corner, which is significant. We've heard Bernie Collins talking, you know, when you're talking about small margins, you're saying brake that 10 meters is significant. So to do it 100 meters is quite a lot earlier than normal. He said he tried to do it for an exit. I think really what he was doing was what we've seen a number of drivers do over the past, and that's defensive driving, put them back a bit, hold them on the apex and then get the run. Did he overdo it? Maybe, not realising how close George Russell actually was. But then I don't think he obviously intended George Russell to go off and collide. I think he just wanted him to hold up a bit and then get the run and then run off down the straight. Didn't expect him to sort of lose his front end and go into the barrier and the big crash that George Russell had. But Russell didn't actually take any evasive action, did he really? He didn't have to swerve out the way like we've seen with Hamilton and Verstappen in Saudi 21, wasn't it? Where that, you know, he really slowed him down and Hamilton cleaned his wing out. Had to actually take evasive action on that one. There wasn't really anything like that from George Russell. He just seemed to close up, and had he not lost the front end as bad, which is probably the big talking point here, is how bad it is for these cars to follow. I don't think he would have lost it, and we had got a great run on Alonso, and it would have really backfired on Fernando. So it's really harsh. I think it was good defensive driving, and I think the punishment is harsh in my view. He should never have got a 20-second penalty in a drive-through. I think it's harsh. We've gone on to say, look at Kevin Magnussen last time out, which good defensive driving. We said the same about Sergio Perez in Abu Dhabi 21. We did the same to Lewis Hamilton. You know, we see all drivers do this. Just hold the pace, apex a little bit. Just get that guy to back off a little bit and then shoot. And, you know, that's good defensive driving. And I think it's a really interesting precedent the stewards have set here. Like, how are they going to manage this going forward? Because we see drivers do this an awful lot. I think the only reason this got as highlighted as big as it is because of the big crash afterwards. Had there not been that, I don't think there would have been any penalty forthcoming. I know they've said that they didn't consider the end result of, or the lack of downforce available to Russell, and then the incident after. They've not considered that in this penalty. I think that's a bit BS on that part, I think personally, because without that crash and the big scenario, I don't think there would have been a penalty for Alonso off the back of that. But it is what it is. I've given Fernando Alonso a 9 out of 10 because I think overall it was a really good recovery. I think P8 takes the shine off it a bit. He did finish 6th, but still some solid points for Aston Martin. And he had a really good race up until this penalty that's just taken the shine off his weekend, really. 9th place, Nico Hülkenberg. Double points finish for the Haas team, isn't it? It's a brilliant race from him. He actually won this on merit, didn't he? He didn't really get the help from Kevin Magnussen like we've seen last time out. It was just a really good strategy. He pit under the VSC, and then he drove a really good race. Some brilliant points for the team. I've given him a 9 out of 10. Following up behind his teammate Kevin Magnussen, like I said, double points for the Haas team. He was up into P11. He had a good battle with Albon, made that pass look actually now really crucial, wasn't it? Picked up that point because of the Russell crash, and a very good weekend for that Haas team. I'm going for an 8 out of 10 for Kevin Magnussen. Alex Albon next up, finished 11th. Now, it's been a horrible start to his weekend, wasn't it, with that crash. Took his car off his teammate, and it's a shame he's just missed out on points in the end, isn't it, really? The car was just too hard on its tyres, and that's really what cost him. He got Haas, didn't he, in the end? He was fighting the two of them, and he kind of lost out. I've given him a 5 out of 10, and I think that's mainly because of the crash, and the low point of that has really put a bit of a downer on his weekend. But yeah, it was a good race overall. I think he's disappointed to miss out on some points. I don't think they probably were on the cards, but it's looking like they're close, and they might pick up some points in the next one. Daniel Ricciardo finished in 12th place. Now, he had a horrible qualifying session, didn't he? Started down in P18. He had good race pace, but just wasn't quite enough from where he was starting to pick off some points in the end. He was closing in on Albon as well. Towards the end, he pitted late to get some fresh tyres on. Didn't get past him at all, and was not really going to look like he was in some points. But needs some really good performances, doesn't he now, Daniel Ricciardo, because Yuki Tsunoda's sort of taken the shine away from him a little bit, and he's meant to be the star man in that team. A 6 out of 10 for Daniel Ricciardo for this weekend. Pierre Gasly, a 13th place finish. They were slow in qualifying, started way back down, didn't he? But he went long on the mediums, and then again that worked really well for him because he managed to pit on the VSC. It's kind of the strange strategy that they went for, wasn't it? The hope of some sort of safety car for him to make that other work, because otherwise it would have gone horribly wrong. It paid off in the end, but it was a sloppy 5-second penalty as well, wasn't it? That exit of the pit lane, he got reprimanded for that in qualifying or practice before that, so he should have really learnt his lesson. On overall, not a fantastic weekend, but he's finished way out the points. It was never really challenging for points. A 5 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. 14th place finish for Valtteri Bottas, and there's only 2 words for him: sticky wheel nuts. They really need to get this sorted. The best thing about his weekend was actually the advert that he did in Australia was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? But the big issue here, let's get back to the racing, is this sticky wheel nut. It's really costing the team massively. They need to do a redesign on it. They have massively long, slow pit stops. Both were really long. I mean, even the fastest one they really raved about was 3.8 seconds. Just miles off the pace. They're getting the cross-threading their wheel nuts because of the design on them, so they're having to do super long pit stops. And points potentially could have been on the cards, weren't they? They were coming on the radio, team radio, sort of apologising to say, sorry Valtteri, looked like some points could have been on the card for you, but for these dodgy wheel nuts, and it's something that they really need to sort out. But a 4 out of 10 for Valtteri Bottas this weekend. He was followed home by his teammate Zhou Guanyu. Same as Bottas, really slow stops, and it just doesn't help at all, isn't it? The only positive for him is that he didn't finish last. Another 4 out of 10 for Zhou Guanyu. And the last race finisher, Ocon, he was going well, but then got a visor stuck in his brake duct. And we've seen this a couple more times than we've sort of seen in the past, hasn't it, this season so far? These visors are getting sucked up into these brake ducts. He had a really slow second stop, and I think the issues of the overheating or whatever didn't really quite go away, and I think that's probably why he finished so far down. A 4 out of 10 for Ocon. And then the DNFs. Max Verstappen was the big one, wasn't he? Race finished lap 2, wasn't it, or 3? Brake issue, it just exploded in the end, which looked like it was an engine, didn't it, at one point, with that smoke pouring out the back. And it exploded dramatically. I think there'll be some concerns on the Red Bull side of things to see what's actually gone on here. I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it. I'm not sure we'll see reliability issues like that from them again, but I think he's a wounded animal, and next time out in Japan, a circuit that should suit him really well, I think he'll just going to take all his anger out. But no rating for Max this weekend. Lewis Hamilton, he didn't have a great weekend at all, did he? Horrible qualifying session, not a great race, engine went, lap 17, just cut out suddenly, wasn't it? And it's not been a great start to this season, hasn't it, for Lewis or the Mercedes outfit. A double DNF for this weekend, no rating for Lewis. George Russell, he was, another DNF, the big crash at the end. He was up to P6 early on, but he was slow on the hard tyres, didn't he? Really struggled on them. He pitted late to try and close down Alonso and pick that points off him. He's done it again, hasn't he? This big crash where he's trying to hunt down, and we've seen it in Singapore last year. It's something, the big crash really summed up Merck's weekend overall. And these sort of crashes, it's something that George probably will need to eliminate really quite quickly. I'm sure he doesn't want it to stain his weekend and his career with these sort of niggles, doesn't he? A bit like Charles Leclerc we've seen, where they performing and they make these big mistakes under pressure. It's something that Russell would really be keen to eradicate quickly. And finally, Logan Sargent didn't race. Oh, a rating for George Russell. I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10 because he actually completed most of the race, didn't he? Disappointing from them. Logan Sargent didn't race. He had to give up his car for Alex Albon. I hope this doesn't affect him too badly. He kind of gets over it and just puts it to one side and just shows what he's actually capable of next time out in Japan and thereon going forward for the rest of the season. He really would be horrible if it sort of phases him too much, and it's probably, if it does, it probably shows William made the right decision in sort of taking him out of the car. He's not got the mettle to do it, but I really hope it's, it's probably a kickstart or a fire lighter under his belly just to show what he's actually got. Hopefully we'll see that next time out in Japan. Circuit, and another fantastic venue coming up in Japan. Brilliant circuit. We normally get very good racing, and hopefully we get a cracker there next time out. But there we go, that's the rating of the drivers for the Australian Grand Prix. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you next time.